Over the last 15 years, my team and I have built and operated security operations centers, dozens of them in the Philippines and around the world. The latest and greatest is actually 10 minutes away in BGC. We've also had the opportunities to engage with hundreds of organizations and understand how they are approaching building, running, optimizing their security operations centers. What I want to do today is share the challenges that they are shared with us and open your eyes, hopefully, on some of the strategies that we see being effective in detecting threats, in responding efficiently, and in ultimately protecting your organizations. Now, for many individuals out there, this is what the belief is that a SOC looks like. Shiny screens, blue lights, a lot of analytics, usually a map of the world somewhere, and real-time understanding of what is happening. The reality, in my experience, it's slightly different. And I've come across many security operations centers where it actually looks a little bit more like this. And to articulate and pinpoint what I hear organizations share about their challenges, it's really about four main areas that we see coming up again and again and again in terms of what challenges security operations centers and generally security leaderships. Number one, overwhelmed teams. I've met individuals and SOCs who experience more than 10 alarms a day. Now, how can you actually cope with that level? It's virtually impossible. Secondly, 58% of the SOC leads that we discuss experience and share that they believe they have blind spots and that even if attackers were already in their infrastructure, it would be difficult for them to even know that an attack was going on, know what steps to take, and know how to react to those events. 82% of security professionals believe that the approach of their security operations center is reactive. They only do respond to events once they find them. There is very little that they do or that they believe their organization is doing to stay ahead, to limit risks, and be preventative to these attacks. Last but not least, I think all of us in security here agree that we tend to be understaffed, we tend to be a little bit overburdened, there's just too much to do, too few people, and attracting, the retention and grooming talent continues to be one of the main challenges for security leaders. Now, what's the result of this? The cost of breaches continues to grow. This is a study from IBM. 2023, we estimate the cost to be around 4.4 million. And despite the progress we make in technology, in AI, in platforms, and around the world, adversaries are faster, but we are still not fast enough. So, what could be some strategies that can help get your SOC under control? How do you go from this chaos of thousands and thousands and thousands of alarms, a reactive approach, not enough talent, and low detection accuracy to control? Now, let me share some of the strategies that we have put in place and that we have seen being effective that hopefully you can take and apply to your own security operations center. First and foremost, when we talk about blind spots, we see a lot of organizations prioritize malware detections, EDR, and trying to catch 0 days and that sort of thing. Actually, if you look at statistics, and this is from CrowdStrike Threat Intelligence Report in 2024 so far, 75% of attacks are malware-free. So your EDR, your next-gen antivirus, and all that sort of thing is not going to help, or it's unlikely to help. We also see that about half of the attacks, and that's data we pulled out of our own monitoring within the Philippines, half of compromises leverage valid credentials and predominantly toward SaaS applications, toward cloud environments. And essentially, again, how can you actually understand and how can you detect this type of activity if you're not looking for this type of event? So it is important that when you consider security operations centers and you consider your monitoring, detection, and response, you look at enterprise assets very holistically in a comprehensive way. So don't look just at laptops, workstations, servers, but extend your visibility to clouds, to SaaS applications, to operational technology, to identities, and to all digital assets that make your organization what it is, that enable it to operate and that you leverage every day. Secondly, we believe that a threat intelligence-driven detection and response is one key strategy that keeps you ahead. Why? How can you detect adversaries if you don't understand how they compromise organizations? From our perspective, understanding adversaries, understanding their techniques, their tools, their procedures, the way they think, the way they compromise organizations, is vital in how you should build your detection and response. Know your adversary so you know how to find them, detect them, and remove them from your environment. Now, building operation centers and operating operation centers requires developing technical capabilities. You can buy all the tools in the world. If you just jump them there, they're probably not going to do much. And so developing advanced technical capabilities is fundamental. Now, you're going to need people, you're going to need time, and you're going to need commitment. People with the right level of expertise, enough time to understand the landscape, to develop procedures, to test those procedures, and to use those procedures. And then lastly, commitment. Commitment and understanding that it will take you time to get to a point where your SOC is actually effective. On average, we see that organizations take roughly about 2 years before the SOC is actually mature enough to be able to identify and respond to a real attack efficiently. 2 years. So if you haven't started already, see you 2 years from now. And at that point, your SOC should be mature enough to detect what you're trying to detect today. People, time, and commitment. In my opinion, this is actually the most fundamental. Next, we said at the beginning that detection and response tends to be very reactive. And actually, what I said is detection and response. So unless I detect something, I'll very unlikely respond to it. It is our opinion that you need to get ahead of threats. You need to be proactive in looking for malicious activity, looking for signs of compromise, looking for potential issues. One of the ways you can approach and be proactive is threat hunting. You've all heard, or many of you have heard about threat hunting. It's about taking the time one day where you don't have any alerts, you don't have any issue, you don't have any fire that you're fighting with, and proactively go and look for potential signs of compromise. Perhaps leverage that intelligence that I talked about before. When you know that adversaries are using certain techniques, go in your environment and look for signs of these techniques. If you know that they're using certain tools, go in your environment and look for signs of usage of these tools. Perhaps your detection system might be able to detect them, but what if they're not? By being proactive, you may be able to identify an ongoing attack, you may be able to identify a potential risky behavior, and you might be able to intervene before it becomes a problem. If you were at the ISOGx Colloquium 2, I did a talk about leveraging AI in order to accelerate response time. And we gave 2 examples where at Theos we leverage AI, Gen AI, LLM models, etc., in order to help our analysts investigate faster, correlate with the information of the organization. We also showed an example where we actually had an analyst use ChatGPT in the example, that's the one on the left, to build a query to look for signs of malicious activity within an environment. In this case, we were looking for signs of rclone, a tool that is well known to be used by a ransomware gang called Black Bastard. And that was used in the context of a response to an incident with that ransomware group. As part of that response, leveraging AI in a more practical way allowed us to reduce the response time from what we estimate would have been about 2 hours to just about 58 minutes. And in the case of that incident, perhaps it was the difference between a full ransomware compromise versus actually catching the bad actor, kicking them out, and the organization being able to be resilient. There are many ways that you can leverage these tools, not just for detection, but also for response. And if you think about talent attraction, talent retention, this is an extremely powerful tool. Your security analyst will thank you and will want to come and work for you if you enable them to use these tools. The last strategy I want to talk about is KPIs and measures. You cannot improve what you don't measure. And so for us, it is fundamental that you go ahead and evaluate the performance of your SOC. Now, there are many things you could be measuring, you could be looking at, you could be trying to measure. We think that coverage is obviously an important metric. Since we talked about blind spots, how many of your assets are you actually seeing as part of your SOC monitoring compared to the number of assets you think you have? How many of your applications are they live? Have you seen them in the last couple of hours? But also, what is your detection rate? What is your rate of false positive versus true positive? What are your acknowledgement times? What are your response times? What is the time it takes you on average to go from detection to response to reaction? And so only if you measure this on an ongoing basis, you'll be able to measure whether you are trending up, whether you're trending down, whether you're making progress, whether the numbers meet your expectations, or whether you are faster than adversaries. One of the latest research from CrowdStrike in 2024 says that on average, the breakout time from the moment an organization is compromised to the moment data is exfiltrated is 62 minutes. So you have 62 minutes from the moment you detect that initial compromise to the moment your data is being stolen. How do you know if you're fast enough unless you measure your actual time to response? So for us, by producing this type of KPIs, by producing these dashboards, and importantly, by taking the time to go through them on a regular basis, we are able to pivot to adapt the way we operate. We're able to refine our operation, refine our technology, so that we are confident that we are fast enough, that we are faster than that 62 minutes. Now, at this point, none of these strategies are quick wins, or none of these strategies are easy to put in place. I'm not going to pretend like it is. Like I said, in our experience, it takes about 2 years before you put this in place, try, fail, repeat, refine, and get to a place where it actually delivers the outcome you're looking for. Now, the good news is we've done the hard work. And so we've taken these strategies, we had the time to experiment, we had the time to refine, and we had the time to get to a point where we are able to deliver the security promises and the security outcomes of getting control over how SOCs operate, getting control over our operation. And so the sort of outcome that you could expect if you are successful in putting these strategies together, number one, being able to deal with volume without any issue. Number two, getting rid of this flow of false positive, getting rid of this flow of alarms that are just overwhelming your teams, overwhelming your SOC, and overwhelming your colleagues. For us, 90% of these, our customers don't see them because we take care of them. And so we take that burden off. And only by applying these strategies have we been able to get to that point. Lastly, you can be faster than adversaries. If you apply these strategies on the tool, on the people, on the process, on the refinement, then you can achieve an SLA, which could look like ours, 15 minutes response time on a critical alert. That means that within 15 minutes of detection, someone is looking into it in your operations center. Now, I invite you all to come and speak to us at the booth if you want to know more about how we went through this process and how we apply these strategies in our SOC every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alex Hudelot. Thank you for doing all the hard work for us. Okay, so strategies. He talked a lot about strategies of what we can do to get your SOC under control. Main thing is not to be reactive, is to be proactive. And we will show you a bit of the takeaways that he had. Strategies he mentioned were comprehensive visibility, threat intelligence, develop advanced technical capabilities. And of course, with that, we need people to use the tech or all that we have, the technology. We need to train people to be able to use that. So leverage AI tools to enhance response actions, reduce the response time. 62 minutes is all it takes from the initial detection to having your data stolen. So all is not lost if you can actually detect all of that in 62 minutes. All right, so AI enhanced response time. Once again, it's important to be proactive and to look for threats.
Thank you.